Here we are on the e-bike, sort of mounted onto this bike, though I'm not sure how well this is going to go. We're going to take a little ride and then do a little talk. See if we can't spot some antelope. Maybe some birds, some wildlife. Have a little discussion. Join me on the ride. Now, probably just use the e-bike functions and take it slow. I'm at an angle because of the way the camera's set up. It's a bit strange, and it keeps bouncing to the right side. But the gimbal's holding me even, so I suppose it's working. We're getting interesting degrees of light here. It's about to be very sunny, even though it is about 7:30 p.m. And we're testing out another run of this microphone, seeing how it does. And this camera, seeing how it does. And seeing how they sound as we go out off into the distance. Seeing what the road noise sounds like compared to the audio. Seeing if my voice picks up anything, even though I got a piece of straw in my mouth. Hearing that wind picking up. Maybe catch the sound of some birds or such. I might lose this, so I'm going to stop before we get on the road. Because later on, it's about to get a whole lot more bumpy. So that's dirt road. Hang on there to your skins. Oh yeah, right into the sun. Let me reset this up. I hear car noise on a road, but I believe it's pretty far. Oh, we're going straight into the sun. Here comes the sun. Da, da, da. We're going to take it slow and just go for a little ride here and see how it goes. Interesting. Oh, that might be way worse. You know, if I could wrap it around and get it back in between the other two, maybe. Oh yeah, maybe something like that. That's about the best it's going to do. It's still going to shift over to the right, but not a lot I can do about that. No, nobody coming. We're chilling. I'll let it do the work so I can talk. So this is the regular road. Speed setting 1. We'll bump it up 1. And you can see some nice clouds building up behind me. Those are nice. But ahead, the clouds are diminishing. So there might be a cell up ahead a little bit. Now, I don't know if I told you, but I used to fly in these clouds. That explains the aviators. I used to spend a lot of time up there. Almost too much time. And while I was high up there, I will let you know that I was also high up there. Now that's an over-exaggeration and an overestimation of my actual behavior, as I do believe I did not put anybody in danger. And I was fairly certain of my abilities, though I did feel them diminishing. Now what I am referring to is the fact that I was indeed fired from my job, much in the same manner that I was processed out of the military. On very uncertain terms. Nothing directly expressed to me, but some very serious paperwork did end up in my mailbox from some fairly serious authorities saying that if I wish to have a relationship with them, then I must go through a series of course work or some such. Now, I won't give you specifics, but you can imagine my thinking. And again, I maintain I did nothing. That wasn't more dangerous than the day-to-day. And definitely not more dangerous than a certain sense of apathy or a sense of extreme tiredness couldn't equally produce. And I will say that was my state for about 90% of my time while working for an airline and being in the military was exhaustion, both physical and mental. And it made the work challenging. We're back on the dirt road, by the way, which is why it's getting a bit bumpy. Well, we won't go too much further until in fact, I might cut it here once I stop at the gate and continue the story on from there. But that was just a little prelude into this character that I am portraying. There's a nice horse with a nice stripe on him. Good mane, nice little tail wag. He's doing a little show for me. If you've never been around a horse, now ladies know this, but horses are sexual beings. And I do not mean there is an attraction there, but to them, you know, just a matter of being. I don't know if you can spin around. I think your endpoints will reach. I'll be back. There's a robin. Did you catch me all the way? No way did that thing actually track me over there. That's crazy. The capabilities of this camera just keep getting better and better. It's wild. It's right in my face. But how much can it handle the bouncing? That's the major question, because I don't think it does well. You lose me? Are we back? Are we back in action? Endpoints reached. Yeah, it's about to get bumpy. So, if it's too bad, maybe I'll give you something else to look at. Or maybe I'll try a stabilization function in Resolve. Problem is with that program is once it's like anything worthwhile, you got to pay for the full package. And while I might consider myself a filmmaker, I'm by no means a good one, or an experienced one, or one that really cares too much about paying for things. Because where's the fun in that? I just pay someone to fix my audio, pay someone to come out and hold the camera for me, hold it still, pay someone to affix a contraption to this bike so I can have this camera looking at me without getting all jumbled around. I could pay someone to fillet me. I could pay someone to give me a foot massage. I could pay someone to do damn near anything, except for tell me what they're actually fucking thinking. Can't pay anybody to do that. No, the only way to extract that kind of thing is to physically and mentally torture them. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that a beautiful, divine, picturesque happening? I don't know why I sound aggressive. Here's why I'm aggressive. I just got finished watching the United States play in a soccer, football, Americano match, and the United States lost that match 2-1. And it's not the manner of the losing, but it's the nature of the loss. Horrifying and horrible. And embarrassment, a true, absolute embarrassment. Some effort shown, sure, a bit of passion, but I'll say the winner of that one was the Mexican fans in the stadium, willing their team on. America trying to prove it can play up against the crowd. in its own home country. How many other nations born in that kind of fire? Not many, that's for sure. Though bits and pieces. Turkey comes to play Germany. Got a lot of Turkish fans there, waving Turkish flags, even though they're working and paying German taxes or what have you. That happens on a smaller scale. But in America, it's a significant event and one of my favorite to watch in sporting. Now, I wanted to give you the opposite side of the story, and perhaps we'll call it a coping mechanism for having lost the game if you are attached somehow to the United States of America soccer team. Some people are. Some people in sport, most Americans, I'd say, that follow soccer certainly support the United States, more so than they support Mexico, though maybe those numbers are increasingly moving towards the Mexican side. But I want to talk about the fans of Mexico, because I love their energy. I'm viciously and violently, well, not violently might be a bit much, but I'm jealous of the outpouring of auditory that they are capable of excreting for their sort of average football team, soccer team. And I say that it's average because it's, the best they've accomplished is worse than the United States, which is to say not that much on the global scale. Yet, the two giants of the region, as they call themselves, face off. And that game alone is more entertaining than 98% of games over the course of any number of years. Because of the nature of the social structures and strata surrounding the game. I find it interesting. And I'll give it a stop here while I got a good view, see if I can scope out some antelope. They like these valleys down here. There's a herd far off in the distance, and here's another herd. The one on the left is the one I performed to. The one on the right I've driven through a couple times. And they don't really have a good gathering place. Unless it's right up alongside the road real close here. So now I suppose move in some direction where you can still see me. Still seeing me. This camera is trying to figure it out. Maybe something like that. Yeah, that ain't bad. As I look onto my cattle, they're not mine, I just talk to them. Hoping that it helps. Maybe they'll produce some sort of more esoteric milk or something for somebody. I like the thought of that for some reason. Anyhow, Mexican fans really pushed their team on in Houston. I think it was like 30th minute maybe. They were singing on Olays as their team passed the ball around. And that was because the game was 1-1. They weren't even leading. But they were so far ahead mentally and with so much support behind them that it was as if the game were over then. And it felt that way for the rest of the game, I'll tell you what. Now, because it is important to mention that Mexico was more close to what would be considered full strength in terms of the squad than the United States was. This is me using football analysis, sport, jargon, bullshit. Most people probably don't care about this. But I would say that Mexico was favored. And if they were full strength, it would probably be favored to the United States. Probably. Though they've been in a rut a bit more recently, so you might get 50-50 odds in Vegas or something like that. Anyhow, well, somebody's got to be the favorite, right? Because that way somebody's got to make money. You can't literally give 50-50 odds if you're Vegas. So you got to either manipulate the game and the referees or manipulate the narrative to be able to profit off of such a thing based on percentages and so on and so forth. Anyhow, Mexico wins the game 2-1, as they do. They should have. They deserved it, probably even more than that. U.S. had a couple little opportunities here and there. They got kind of lucky with the first goal, literally scored by a centimeter probably, maybe a couple across the line. And what happens is the Mexican fans are in jubilee. They are uproarious. They are chanting Olé, and they're chanting Mexico, and they're chanting in victory. Now they do something kind of ancient that people do when they're losing, when they're frustrated. And you'll get this from Mexican fans outright. It's even been banned. There's even been litigation against this action. And litigating the actions of a massive crowd that is chanting a term is an interesting attempt at the affront of, you might say, liber, of liberty. That if the crowd wants to chant, or maybe throw up a sign, a signal, or they all want to dab. Can't hide that side. They all want to dab. You know, what are they doing? They're all doing it. Well, let's punish all of them. Well, that does happen from time to time, though it tends to be ugly, because I believe it's an affront to the nature of liberty. Anyhow, so they chant Mexico and they chant Olé, and they're all happy. And that gets a bit of attention, because they won. Yeah, they got all the fans there. And good to them. They played better on the day. They deserved it. Their fans certainly extracted more enjoyment from a United States victory would have. No question. They do, as a mass of people, take it more seriously. So seriously, in fact, that I will give you the flip side of what happens, especially during one of these contests between these two sides, the United States and Mexico, when they're losing, or when they lose. Because when they lose, it's not just by one, it's by two. And even that is symbolic. Because it's not just the loss. It's not just the result. It's the pain of the result. It's not just you lost by one, you lost by two. And it doesn't matter if the score is 5-1. But when it is 2-0, it is significant because of that dual-edged sword that cuts both ways. Cuts in and leaves chunks coming out. It's painful for the Mexicans when they lose, especially to the United States. And what do they chant? This might be, you might have expected this if you'd known anything about this situation beforehand. But what do they chant? Or what have you heard about what they chant? I'll give you the translation first, and then we'll walk it back into how that narrative is even corrupted and incorrect. And I'll give you my perspective on the word that they chant. The word that they chant, here's what happens. They're losing, 70th minute. Maybe they're losing in the 80th minute and they're down 2 and they don't look like they're going to score. So the fans have that foresight. That's why the crowd, via liberty, often predicts the future. The general feeling, the atmosphere. That's why a last-second shot that goes in or a late goal that changes the situation, that's a vicious change of feeling. It's the push and the pull of the sporting event and the glory therein, as it's undefined and at times impossible to predict. You often hear this repeated phrase, you could not write a script like this. Well, given all the rules and all the narrative storytelling abilities, I believe you could write just about every script. inside a sporting event that has already been written and more. It would actually be pretty easy to write something like that. But if you wrote it because it actually happened, and you wrote it as it happened, then that's not a script anymore, is it? It's basically saying this wasn't scripted. It's basically what it's saying. And sometimes it is a bit scripted. That does happen. But anyways, that nature of reality is that they're certainly doing something out there. And it's certainly a show which is being taken in. And in that show, when Mexico is losing, I'll get on to it. On the flip side is the goalkeeper sets the ball down, so he's ready to kick it out. The opposing goalkeeper, not their own. Sometimes they're actually, I lied. It doesn't matter which side goalkeeper is taking a goal kick. There's a pause in the game, there's a lull, he sets it down, and they all get ready. And they all start raising their voices, going, we'll let you know if you want to join in, you can, because we're doing the oh as he approaches the ball. And when he takes that kick, they yell at him and they call him a faggot. Now, I love this. Not because my team is winning. In that situation, if it's the United States, I'm usually receiving different levels of dopamine in my brain, or whatever chemically you want to describe it as. I have that anticipating feeling of victory for the side in the affair with which I have more relation. Now, I've never played for the team. I have been to a game. I've owned a shirt, maybe. But have I much raised my voice at one of these contests for a goal? Maybe moments, but it's not something that really deeply affects me. I guess it deeply affects me enough to come out and have this discussion about it. But again, maybe it is a bit of coping with the team losing, though I've kind of expected it beforehand. I was more just excited for the nature of the show that was about to unfold. And there was some good shots of the fans, and that was nice. But back to the word, which is the crux of the argument that I'm going to make, and you're not going to like it. Because it's not going to sound true to you. Maybe it will. But the word that they actually use is in Spanish. And I already used the English word, and if I get censored or whatever for that, or somebody takes the video down for hate speech or whatever, it's whatever. It's in a Rammstein song. You got that up on video in German. So the Spanish word is puta. Oh, excuse me, it's puto. Or it actually doesn't matter, because the root of the word is not the name of a homosexual. Although maybe you could make that argument, but it's rather insignificant. But if you go back deep into the etymology of the way in which that sound is formed, it's closely related in its original, and this is my point of contention, and you can look it up, but the etymology derives all the way back to the name of Apollo. Now, I've written more extensively on this, and with some deeper references, though it's insignificant to me, really, because that's almost an impossible thing to prove. In fact, it is an impossible thing to prove, though it's not necessarily an impossible thing to argue. So I'll attempt to do so without reference, because you can look it up, Google AI it or whatever. Who gives a shit what that says? That's your truth? Okay, good. You were given it then by a computer algorithm. Congratulations. Now, why would you call someone a faggot, first of all? or a puta or a puto. Maybe the sexuality matters in that. So I guess maybe they say puto. Maybe if he's a bit feminine, they might even say puta. Doesn't matter. But it's the word that people have decided that it means that we're calling him a homosexual. Which has how much bearing on the situation if in fact he was anyhow? Well, basically zero. But what do you do when someone frustrates you? When someone makes you angry? Call them a name. Doesn't even matter who it is. It's indiscriminate. You just start throwing words out aggressively. And why is that? Why are you throwing those words out? It's because you're in pain. You're in pain because that feeling of victory is further away than you'd have liked. The next time that the United States plays Mexico in a competitive match is literally not on the schedule as far as I know. So we don't even know when victory in this sense will come again. Though they are hosting the World Cup next summer. They're not in the same group, though it is a possibility they could meet later in the competition, which would be epic. It happened once before. United States 2-0 in their best World Cup performance of all time. Currently the team is a bit dog shit, but I digress. I'm in pain because the United States lost. Fuck. God damn it. Son of a bitch. Motherfucker. Why do you suck so bad? Get that guy off the field. These are all expressions of pain. When you're in pain, you give these expressions of pain. And that's what the Mexican fans do when their team is losing, because they are seriously in that much pain. And that is a moment that's brilliant and beautiful. Why? Because it brings people together in their pain. And it gets the gloss of the modern hypersexualized mind of being an expression of aggression towards people that are hated and are an innocent party and so on and so forth. Well, to many, when they call out the name of Apollo, they're calling out the name of victory itself, calling out an ancient name of victory. When asked who Alexander was conversing with, prior to his first encounter with Darius, he mentioned that he was consulting with Apollo, as if Apollo to him meant the coming of victory. You can look at the sign, a symbol meant to represent his Macedonian Empire and the League of the Greeks, minus the Spartans, because they were detested for not joining in or whatever. Not submitting, which is actually admirable in some ways. However, what do you see in these crowds and these performances? The cameraman turns it on somebody and says, I'm about to put you on camera. And he says, we want you to do something, cheer. But there's awkward faces and they don't know what to do sometimes. So I guarantee that they're telling them that this is what they should be doing, because you're seeing it all the damn time now. As they're saying, kiss the badge. That's what all the players are doing. They're kissing the badge. They're saying, this is where I derive my victory from. I derive my victory from playing for this club that plays under this badge, and they kiss it. And it's the United States emblem. It's the Mexican eagle and snake emblem. It's whatever. It's the club they play for. It's the country they play for. And then the fans imitate that behavior, and they're told to do so when they get put on camera. And what was Alexander doing? He was kissing the badge. He was kissing the sun, saying, Apollo, you little fucking faggot, I love you. Please bring me victory. And maybe I'd even curse the name of Apollo and call him a faggot if I was denied. Now, using the gods in such a way, particularly ties up their mouths and makes them feel all sorts of pain, unless, of course, they were granted the ability to say some such, as I would never say a disparaging word about the sun or Apollo. But when he's your route to victory and he does not come through, you wonder the nature of his victory. Maybe you get frustrated. Maybe you get angry. Maybe you say some bad names about whoever. Someone on your side or someone on the other. That's the nature of fire and anger and aggression. And it's a means to deal with pain. Now, there's other means to deal with pain. But why would you want to deny someone their ability to deal with pain? By manipulating the vibrations in the air. Because it would affect someone and someone might get hurt. Well, then they can continue that echo. And that echo can resonate. And people can know we're frustrated, so we call on the God which brings us victory to please allow us to have some sort of victory so we can deal with this moment that is decidedly not victorious. Now again, I was watching there's a famous streamer who seems increasingly a nature of boardroom think, and his name is Zach, I believe, goes by something or other Gold, and puts on some coverage of current events and so on and so forth. And I was wondering what to decide about this gentleman, because he basically represents the boomer outlook on life, while living in the frame of a, semi-jaded millennial. As if the boomer psychology is some sort of profound state of being. Now, I don't mean to attack an individual, just the nature of his manifestation. I fear that it appears to be conglomerized. Now, I, speaking as an individual, am not free from the influence of others. Though the thing that really bothered me about him, now none of that boomer stuff really bothers me, and his take is basically, yep, that's what these older folk think in this country, isn't it? Someone brought up the etymology. He was covering the Iran-Iraq war, the 12-day war, if that's really what, it's more like 12 years of basically attempting to overthrow without invasion, or longer. And I don't want to get too deep into that topic, but somebody brought up the fact that his point about them using the word martyr when someone in their country dies, they call them a martyr. And they say a certain number of martyrs passed today or whatever. Now, it's typically someone who is important to their movement when they say that, but they also say it when there's a bombing. When your country is bombed, they say they're a martyr. Now, to the Western mind, to the boomer mind, a martyr in America is really the only thing you could think of would be Jesus Christ. So it's not enough to die, say, for a cause, whether or not you're involved in it or not. There's a war going on. How much are you involved? Well, I'll let you know that as a citizen of a country, you're involved more than you probably think you are. And your contributions are being weighed, measured, and monitored increasingly to produce the desired result in such matters. But it's not enough to just have died. Right? You get hit by a bus in America, you're not a martyr. It's the system, transportation. But hey, you lowered GDP by just a tiny iota. You hurt the cause there. And the future potential of your income, you really hurt the cause. So maybe you are a martyr if you get hit by a bus. But in America, obviously, it's not enough. It's got to be above and beyond. It's got to be over the top. So it's got to be the story of Jesus Christ. So you got to be tortured. You got to be whipped and lashed and wrongfully imprisoned. And then you got to be nailed up in front of your peers until you bleed out, dying and crying to your God. And anything less than that is, you ain't a martyr. Stop whining to me. You ain't Jesus. What an annoying type to have to deal with. So someone in the chat brought up, the etymology of martyr goes back to the Greek, and it basically just means die for a cause. So they're basically saying that their people didn't die for nothing. Because it seems indiscriminate. A bombing run that goes over, and he kept repeating this phrase, surgical precision. Surgical precision. It's like, man, this is boardroom speak. Every bomb that's dropped is meant to be dropped with surgical precision. Sometimes the target is a nuclear facility, and sometimes it's literally a city block in Tehran to send a message. Both of those are surgical precision. Israel doing a last-minute bombing run. I mean, these are all talking points that sounds like I'm trying to defend one side or another. And that's not the point I'm getting at. The point I'm getting at is he basically said, I don't care about the ancient etymology of things. That's basically saying you don't care about history. You don't care about a written record. And I guess increasingly that is the state of the boomer mind, is they don't want to care about anything. Just whatever the new thing is that provides them with that bit of dopamine, so they can do what? The opposite version of screaming out to your God in pain, saying, bring us victory. I can't take this defeat anymore. Because those voices are loud and scary sometimes. And you know what? They might even be a bit Hitler-y. Hillary. She would have made a great Hitler. She got that unpredictability about her. But that's not really what Hitler was like. Maybe it's how he's portrayed. But they get that other sense of oncoming victory, and that's just some form of medication or dopamine. Oh, that is a beautiful hawk flying down super low. Sun's just about coming down over the mountaintops, and that hawk is looking for dinner. Going right over the fence post right now, crossing the road. Heading north. Wind coming from the north. It's getting warm. Today is nice. Right now is real nice. But it's going to be hot next few days. These cattle are going to be overheating, cooking, medium rare. So anyways, I thought I'd give that short little discussion about that word. I guess that's the central focus. It's not a nice one to focus on. I didn't even talk about homosexuals all that much. That's probably best. It's probably best left out, to be honest. Because what do you want my opinion on them for? I already talked about the Bacchanalia. They're future warriors for Liber. That's what those guys are. The women too. Now what he chooses to do with them, I don't know. I suppose my lips are sealed on that one. But you might be on one side of it, or you might be on the other. See, I suppose I could say I'm a loser today because my team lost, but I don't feel like it. Maybe because I came out here and I stretched out my vocal cords. Had a discussion with Apollo. And maybe pride is mine into when victory might be coming again. He's already given me some ideas today, and I attribute it to him because, well, I've been talking about him a lot. When I bring up Alexander, I usually like to bring up Apollo. Apollo holds a significant seat to me because he is the one with the unchanged name. From the 12 of Greece to the 12 of Rome, he is the one who was Apollo in both houses. Even Liber, who I hold up very highly, as you may have guessed, goes by numerous titles. Even Zeus, I rarely use that name though, rarely. Don't care much for it, to be honest. Prefer Jove, not so much Jupiter, but Jove because I think it gives a nice balance to Juno, them being both 4 letters. I don't necessarily want to address all the 12 right now, but I've addressed the 13th and a couple of the prominent ones. I guess maybe I'll just leave you with a short recital. Maybe just the first little portion of the Aeneid, because that is a story about victory in all forms. And it's a story about sport. Book 5 is basically the book which describes the prophecy of what is the nature of and symbolism surrounding sport. Feats of technology, feats of strength, feats of speed, and of course feats of war are all on display in Book 5 of the Aeneid. I'll start off at the beginning and then give my last phrase because I've been going on a bit, and I'm eager to get back. So the beginning of the Aeneid goes... Congratulations to Mexico, by the way. Game well played. Lots of grit. They played a 16-year-old. Started him. He played about 65 minutes. He looked pretty good, too. Future is bright for Mexican football. America, well, we'll see. All right. Arma verum que cano troique prima sapors Italium fata pervugus Laviniaci venilatora. I sing of arms and of the man who first came from the coast of Troy to Italy and the Lavinian shores, exiled by fate. Much was he tossed about upon the land and on the sea by supernal powers, because of cruel Juno's sleepless wrath. Many things he also suffered in war until he built the city, and brought his gods into Latium, from which came the Latin race, the elven sires, and the walls of lofty Rome. O Muse, tell the causes, for what affront and why incense the queen of gods compelled a hero renowned for his piety to undergo such sufferings and such toils, as there such anger in celestial minds. Well, I guess there is when you call him a faggot. Rile him up a bit. Maybe he'll turn for you. It's an interesting strategy. I don't mind it. I think it's beautiful. So again, Latin America proves that they are the superior footballing force. Congratulations. Et vera incessu patuit dea.